A cavernous dome of black alloy stretched overhead, ribbed with golden light that pulsed like the veins of some colossal beast. 40 alien delegates sat in a vast circle around the central floor, their thrones shaped by the cultures they represented. Crystalline spires, flowing liquid seats, cages of bone. Beyond them, a panoramic wall of transparent metal revealed the void of space. Floating there, blotting out the stars, hung the cruel Dominion's flagship. Its hull resembled a fortress sculpted from obsidian and fire. The delegates shifted nervously, whispering in tones both guttural and melodic. Their eyes, many orbs and stalks in glowing pits, all flicked toward a human at the table's edge. He alone appeared motionless, hands folded, gaze steady. Commander Elias K. did not belong here, and that was precisely why he was dangerous. A vibration shuddered through the floor as a figure emerged from the flagship's docking umbilical. The chamber doors groaned open, and High Warlord Zirak Krull entered. The Dominion's ruler towered above the gathered species, his scale form gleaming with an oily sheen. Armor plates studded his limbs, each marked with blood-red glyphs of conquest. His eyes glowed molten gold, and when he inhaled, the room seemed to breathe with him. A hush fell. "You will kneel." His voice was thunder wrapped in venom. "You will surrender your fleets, your worlds, and your wills. The cruel Dominion has no patience for weakness." None dared respond. A dozen delegates lowered their heads, signaling compliance. The rest sat frozen, unwilling to draw his gaze. Zirak's eyes slid across the circle and landed on Elias. A flicker of amusement, then contempt. "And the humans," he said, voice deepening. "You who stumble into the stars as children playing with knives. Your planet is fragile. Your colony is exposed. Bend the knee, and you may live long enough to serve us." Elias leaned back, fingers steepled beneath his chin. He let the silence stretch until it grew sharp. Then calmly he spoke. "You've mistaken us for prey." Gasps rippled through the chamber. One delegate's crystalline body shivered, producing a cascade of anxious tones. Another hissed in protest. None had dared speak to the High Warlord in such a manner. Elias's voice carried with precise clarity. "Earth does not kneel. Not to threats, not as shadows cast across our skies. You say fragility. I say resilience. You see colonies. I see footholds. You see prey. We see predators." Zirak's lips peeled back in something like a smile, exposing serrated fangs. "Bold. Naive. I have ground empires into ash for less arrogance." Elias didn't flinch. "Then perhaps it is time the galaxy remembers what arrogance looks like when it wins." The chamber erupted in overlapping tongues, clicks, growls, melodic protests. The council's presiding speaker, a six-limbed being of translucent flesh, raised a trembling hand for order. "Commander Cade, this council convened to avoid bloodshed, not invite it." "Blood has already been spilled," Elias replied, his eyes never leaving Zirak. "The Dominion doesn't negotiate. It conquers. We've studied your history. We know your pattern. Submission only delays death." Zirak took a step forward, claws scraping against the polished floor. "You think Earth can defy the Dominion? With your paltry fleets? With your untested weapons?" Elias allowed the faintest trace of a smile. "We think differently. That's what unsettles you." The delegates shifted again, their fear warring with curiosity. Some had dismissed humanity as an upstart species. Now, for the first time, doubt flickered. Zirak lowered his voice, making it intimate, deadly. "Defiance has a price, human. I will start with your colonies. I will burn your skies and enslave your children. And when your kind crawls to me, broken, I will remind them of this moment." Elias leaned forward, tone sharpening. "History doesn't remember the predators. It remembers those who hunted them. And make no mistake, if you touch Earth, every man, woman, and child of my species will rise against you. We will fight until your dominion is a memory told in hushed warnings." The chamber vibrated with murmurs. Delegates who had shrunk moments ago now watched him with widened eyes. Defiance, raw and unshaken, was something they hadn't seen in centuries. The presiding speaker attempted once more. "Commander, High Warlord, please." But the moment belonged to the two of them, predator and prey, though it was unclear which was which. Zirak's claws flexed, gouging grooves into the alloy beneath him. I will crush your world myself. Elias rose, smoothing the front of his black uniform. His movements were measured, deliberate. He did not look at the delegates, only the towering warlord before him. Then I suggest you try, he said, voice steady as steel. But remember this, the last empire that underestimated humanity no longer exists. You're welcome to join them. He turned and walked from the chamber. The doors closed behind him with a resonant thud. The silence left in his wake was heavier than Zirak's threats. The delegates whispered, argued, speculated. For the first time in living memory, someone had stood unshaken before the Dominion. Zirak remained motionless, golden eyes burning. At last he spoke, a promise whispered like a curse. Earth will burn. The night side of Earth's orbital defense ring glowed faintly, a silver crown tracing the planet's curve. Hundreds of construction yards thrummed with life, welding arcs flashing like stars against the void. Humanity had never built so much, so quickly, and yet, to Commander Elias Cade, it still looked fragile. He stood in the observation gallery of Fleet Command, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the planet below. Beneath the blue oceans and green continents lay billions of people who had no idea how close they stood to becoming subjects of the Dominion. Footsteps echoed. Admiral Yarimani approached, her posture crisp, voice sharp. You've thrown a gauntlet at a warlord who has crushed civilizations centuries older than ours. The Council thinks you're reckless. Some of our own leaders agree. Elias turned. Reckless would have been silence. Submission buys us nothing but a slower death. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. She knew he was right. Still, duty compelled her. Then we prepare. Fast. The Dominion will strike colonies first. Silene, Vega, maybe even Titan. Their pattern is always to break the edges before pushing for the heart. Elias nodded slowly. And that's where we bleed them. He stepped toward the display table at the gallery's center. With a gesture, the holographic projection bloomed. Star maps, colonies, wormhole routes. Red spheres marked predicted Dominion movements. Lines of attack drawn like veins of blood, creeping across space. We know their fleets are massive, he said, his tone steady. But massive fleets mean predictable logistics. They can't maneuver like we can. Wormhole corridors are our advantage. If we can anticipate their vanguard, we cut their throat before they realize we're standing behind them. Yara studied him. You're suggesting we hit them first. That's not defense, Elias. That's war. He met her gaze. It's already war. The only question is where the first bodies fall. Later, in the council chamber beneath Geneva's shielded capital, Earth's leaders gathered. The room smelled faintly of ozone, the air scrubbers working overtime against the press of bodies and tension. President Halvorsen, a woman whose calm exterior masked relentless pragmatism, presided at the center. Around her, ministers, generals, and scientists argued in clipped tones. Elias waited until the storm of voices quieted, then spoke. We've intercepted Dominion transmissions, he began. Their first strike is aimed at Silene Station. They want to test our response. If we defend and fail, morale collapses. If we ignore it, they establish a foothold. Either way, they dictate the tempo. The room fell still. Halvorsen leaned forward. What do you propose? Elias brought up the holographic display again, his voice low but clear. We don't defend Silene. We ambush the fleet sent to destroy it. Wormhole transit gives us the reach they don't expect. We appear where they think we can't, strike hard, and vanish before reinforcements arrive. One general scoffed. You want to gamble humanity's first battle on untested wormhole tactics? If it fails, we lose ships we can't replace. Elias's reply was immediate. If we sit and wait, we lose everything. The Dominion thrives on fear. We break that cycle by hitting them first, showing the galaxy they can bleed. Silence settled. The argument had no simple counter. Finally, Halvorsen exhaled. Prepare your plan, Commander. If humanity must step into fire, let it be on our terms. Hours later, Elias found himself alone in his quarters aboard the Resolute. The hum of the ship surrounded him, steady and mechanical. He sat at his desk, staring at a small, battered photograph. His younger self in uniform, arms slung around two fellow soldiers. Both were gone now, claimed by wars humanity had already fought among itself. He traced the edge of the photo with a thumb. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had left soldiering behind to become a diplomat, believing negotiation might prevent future wars. Yet here he was, planning humanity's first interstellar strike. The door chimed. Without waiting, Yara entered. She eyed the photo before speaking. "You still carry them with you?" "Every day," Elias said quietly. "You think this war will be different?" His eyes hardened. "It has to be. This isn't about politics or territory. It's survival. We can't afford to lose." She nodded slowly, then set a data slate on his desk. "Preliminary fleet rosters. We've got 73 ships ready for combat. Half of them are converted civilian haulers. It's not much." Elias picked up the slate, scanning the names. Every ship represented thousands of lives. Every choice he made would echo in their fates. "It's enough," he said at last, "if we use them right." The first stage of preparations unfolded with frantic energy. Shipyards worked without pause, crews drilled in simulated wormhole jumps, and defense grids recalibrated for rapid redeployment. Humanity's military was young, its navy untested, but resolve burned hotter than fear. Elias spent every hour between strategy meetings and briefings, weaving intelligence reports into plans. The Dominion's sheer scale loomed over every discussion, yet he refused to let numbers dictate inevitability. Wars were not won by statistics. They were won by will and ingenuity. During one late-night session, a junior officer voiced what others had only whispered. "Sir, what if we lose?" Elias looked up from the holographic maps. His reply was simple. "Then we make sure they remember how much it cost them." A week later, under the pale glow of Luna's horizon, the fleet assembled. 73 ships, their hulls scarred from rapid conversion. Engines roaring against the void. Elias stood on the bridge of the Resolute, eyes fixed on the wormhole generator pulsing at the fleet center. It was humanity's greatest gamble. Instantaneous relocation, untested in combat. Yara's voice broke the silence. "Once we step through, there's no turning back." Elias straightened, hands clasped behind him. "That's the point. The Dominion thinks we'll cower. Tonight, they learn otherwise." The countdown began. Energy built, blue-white arcs dancing like lightning across the generator's frame. The wormhole bloomed into existence, a swirling vortex of light, its core darker than space itself. "Fleet, engage," Elias ordered. One by one, ships plunged into the vortex, swallowed whole. The Resolute followed, and Earth vanished behind them. The gamble had begun. The wormhole spat the Resolute into alien space with a burst of light that shattered the void. The stars rearranged themselves in an instant, disorienting. As the fleet snapped back into reality, alarms chirped across consoles as crews recalibrated sensors. Ahead lay Silene Station, an orbital hub built into an asteroid, its surface glinting faintly against the star it circled. But it wasn't the station that drew every gaze. It was a Dominion fleet, a dozen warships, each dwarfing the largest human cruiser, bristled with weapon batteries that glowed like molten scars. Their formation was rigid, precise, an iron wall between Silene and salvation. On the Resolute's bridge, tension cut the air. Officers bent over consoles, murmuring data streams. Admiral Imani's voice carried firm authority. "They haven't detected us yet. We dropped behind their sensor net." Elias Cade's eyes narrowed. "Good. Then we strike first." The plan had been simple on paper. Humanity's wormhole technology gave them the one advantage the Dominion couldn't predict: mobility. Appear where least expected, hit hard, vanish before counterattack. Simple in concept, lethal in execution. But standing before the Dominion's hulking silhouettes, it felt like daring a hurricane to blink. "Signal the fleet," Elias said. "Form hunter groups. Target their escorts first. Cripple their fangs before they bite." "Yes, Commander," comms answered. The fleet split into trios, each group peeling off with practiced precision. Civilian haulers repurposed into gunships flew alongside sleek corvettes, their makeshift armor glinting under starlight. They were patchwork vessels, but they carried the will of billions. On the tactical display, blue icons fanned out, converging on the Dominion's flank. The first salvo came like a lightning storm. Human railguns spat tungsten rods at relativistic speeds, streaking invisible until impact. The Dominion escorts shuddered under the assault. Armor plates peeled, engines sputtered. Explosions flared silently in the void, brilliant blossoms of fire against the dark. Direct hit on Cruel Corvette, a sensor officer reported. They're scattering to cover. Keep pressure, Elias ordered. No hesitation. Missiles launched in waves, their contrails curling like comets. They threaded through Dominion point defense fire, detonating in flashes that rocked ships from stern to bow. The enemy's disciplined wall fractured into chaos. For the first time in living memory, Dominion steel bled. But the response was swift. The Dominion capital ship at the center of the formation rotated, its main cannon glowing with apocalyptic energy. A beam lanced across space, shearing through a human frigate. The vessel split apart, its wreckage scattering like broken glass. The Resolute shook as shock waves rippled through local space. Crew members gritted their teeth, holding fast to stations. Frigate, dauntless, destroyed, an officer whispered, voice tight with grief. Elias's tone cut through the air. Remember them by making it count. Target their reactor vents. Force them to bleed energy. Another volley launched. A Dominion cruiser reeled, its venting plasma painting space in a luminous trail. Admiral Imani's voice sharpened. If we keep hammering, we can force them into retreat. Elias shook his head. Not retreat. Humiliation. The galaxy needs to see the Dominion fail. The bridge erupted with overlapping voices as more Dominion ships joined the fray. Fighters spilled from launch bays, insectal in shape, wings glinting as they swarmed toward human lines. Deploy interceptors, Elias commanded. Keep them off our cruisers. The Resolute's hangar released its squadrons, sleek fighters darting like starlings into the oncoming swarm. Dogfights flared across the void, trails of fire and debris marking the sky. In the midst of it, Elias's mind worked coldly, weaving chaos into opportunity. The Dominion thrived on overwhelming force, but in chaos, discipline became rigidity. Humanity, unpredictable and desperate, turned chaos into a weapon. Divert Group 3 through the asteroid field. Elias ordered. Flank their flagship. Make them think the station itself is fighting back. The maneuver was insane, but precisely the kind of insanity Dominion commanders never anticipated. Minutes stretched into eternity. The Resolute shuddered under grazing fire, hull plating glowing from heat. Consoles sparked, acrid smoke curling in the recycled air. Officers barked updates over the din. Shields at 30%. Reactor holding, but weapons are overheating. Enemy cruiser breaking formation. Through it all, Elias stood at the center, unshaken. He issued orders with clipped certainty, his calm infecting the crew. Then, at last, direct hit on Dominion flagship. The words rang like a bell. Group 3 breached their flank. Their reactor is destabilizing. The display lit with a new flare. The Dominion flagship convulsed as internal detonations ripped through its hull. A chain of explosions tore across its length until the vessel split in two, spilling fire into the abyss. The void fell momentarily silent. Humanity had destroyed a Dominion flagship. On the bridge, disbelief gave way to a roar of triumph. Crews cheered, some pounding fists against consoles, others shouting into comms. The first taste of victory burned hotter than fear. Elias allowed himself a thin smile. Transmit to all channels. Humanity stands. Let the galaxy bear witness. But celebration was brief. Sensors screamed as reinforcements surged from deeper space. Dominion signals, dozens, maybe more, spilling through subspace like a rising tide. The fleet they had faced was only the spear point. The hammer was coming. Admiral Imani's voice dropped, grim. We can't stay, Elias. Not against that. He nodded. We've made our point. Recall fighters. Prepare wormhole sequence. The order rippled through the fleet. Squadrons disengaged, ships peeled away, and the wormhole generator flared to life. One by one, battered vessels vanished into the vortex, carrying the story of their defiance with them. The Resolute lingered, covering the retreat. Dominion fire rained against its shields, but the wormhole pulsed ready. Elias gave a final glance at the wreckage of the Dominion flagship. The message had been written in fire and steel. "Take us home," he said. The Resolute plunged into the vortex, and the battlefield disappeared. Hours later, in the command chamber orbiting Earth, transmissions flooded in from across the galaxy. Species who had dismissed humanity now whispered of their audacity. Delegates debated, argued, feared. Some called them reckless, others dangerous. But all spoke one truth. The Dominion had been bloodied, and humanity had struck the blow. Alone in his quarters, Elias sat once more with a photograph of his fallen comrades. He set it on the desk beside a fresh report of casualties, names of men and women who would never return. His jaw tightened. The victory was real, but so was the cost. When the door chimed, he didn't look up. Enter. Admiral Imani stepped inside, weary but resolute. "The galaxy is watching. You've made us impossible to ignore." Elias's voice was quiet, but edged with iron. "Good, because this was only the beginning." The council chamber on Zereth Prime was louder than a battlefield. Delegates from dozens of species shouted over one another, voices colliding in a storm of accusation and fear. The hollow displays above their seats replayed humanity's first victory again and again. The Dominion flagship splitting apart, a fireball scattering into space. For most, it was unthinkable. For some, it was terrifying. For all, it was undeniable. Humanity had bloodied the empire that none had dared resist for centuries. Elias Cade stood at the chamber's center, letting the uproar burn itself down. He wore the same black uniform, unadorned but immaculate, his hands folded calmly behind his back. He didn't raise his voice, didn't interrupt. He simply waited until silence broke under its own weight. At last, the presiding speaker turned translucent eyes toward him. "Commander Cade, you have forced the Dominion to bleed, and in so doing, you have forced them to rage. Their fleets move even now. Whole colonies burn." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Elias's jaw tightened. He knew what was coming before the next words fell. 3 outer rim settlements have been erased. Millions dead. The Dominion answers your defiance with fire. Elias's reply came low, steady. "Then their mask has slipped. They've shown the galaxy what they are. Butchers! That alone is victory." A crystalline delegate hissed. "Victory? Your defiance brings slaughter. We begged you to remain silent." "And where did silence ever spare you?" Elias shot back. His eyes swept the circle, meeting gazes unflinching. "Every one of you has buried cities under cruel fire. You call it survival, but it is surrender by another name. Humanity chose differently. And now, for the first time, the Dominion hesitates." The words hung heavy. Some turn away in shame. Others lean forward, drawn despite themselves. One delegate, cloaked in flowing silver threads, leaned close to his translator node. "What is it you propose, human? That we throw our dying fleets beside yours? That we gamble the last remnants of our strength on your audacity?" Elias answered without hesitation. "Yes, because together we can turn audacity into inevitability." The council dissolved hours later into private caucuses. Deals whispered in corners. Elias left the chamber with Admiral Imani at his side, her expression unreadable. "You're pushing them," she said. "Some are listening. Some are plotting against us." "They were always plotting," Elias replied. "But now the balance shifts. They fear the Dominion. Yes, but they're beginning to fear us more." "That's not a comfort," she muttered. "It doesn't need to be. It needs to be useful." Back aboard the Resolute, Elias convened his war council. Officers and strategists gathered around the central display. Dominion fleet movements glowed in red arcs, carving swaths of destruction across the galaxy. Blue icons, few and scattered, marked what remained of council forces. A young strategist pointed to the border worlds. "They're striking indiscriminately. Terror tactics. Entire populations slaughtered. They want to isolate us, Admiral Imani said. Make humanity the villain in Council eyes. Elias studied the map, silent for a long moment. Then we turn their cruelty against them. The officers exchanged uncertain looks. Elias continued, voice steady. They think slaughter frightens us into submission. Instead, it unites us. We'll make their atrocities visible to every world, every broadcast, every channel. Force the Council to face the truth they've ignored for centuries. And when they demand you stop provoking the Dominion, Imani asked. Elias's eyes hardened. We provoke harder. 2 weeks later, humanity launched its boldest move yet. Not an attack, but a broadcast. Across Council networks, Dominion massacres were shown in stark, unflinching clarity. Burning colonies, enslaved survivors, the bodies of children left in streets. Every delegate, every citizen of the Allied worlds, saw what submission had bought them. The reaction was immediate. Protests erupted on planets that had long stayed silent. Council leaders faced outrage from their own people. For the first time, the question spread. If humanity could fight back, why couldn't they? Elias watched the broadcast in silence from the Resolute's war room. He felt no triumph, only grim resolve. Admiral Imani joined him. You've lit a fire, but fires spread where they will. Some will want you burned for it. Let them try, Elias said quietly. The Dominion will never forgive us. Neither will fear. But history doesn't remember those who stayed safe. It remembers those who forced change. The Dominion's answer was swift and merciless. An entire colony on the rim, Eridan Prime, was bombarded from orbit. Cities vaporized. Survivors dragged in chains. A transmission followed, broadcast directly to Earth. High Warlord Zirak's massive form filled the hollow display, molten eyes burning with contempt. Human, he growled, voice like grinding stone. You have made the galaxy believe you dangerous. Good. I will show them the price of your arrogance. The transmission cut to the execution of prisoners. Men, women, children, lined in rows. Dominion soldiers struck them down, without pause. The message was clear. On the Resolute, silence crushed the bridge. Officers stared in horror. Even Admiral Imani looked stricken. Elias did not speak until the transmission ended. Then, with a voice like a blade, set course for Eridan. We strike their garrison. Tonight, the attack was reckless, desperate, and utterly necessary. The fleet emerged from wormhole transit into fire. Dominion warships clustered above Eridan's scorched surface, confident in their control. They didn't expect humanity's retaliation so soon. Railguns thundered. Missiles streaked. Fighters screamed through void. The battle was chaos. Human ships darting unpredictably, exploiting wormhole jumps to carve holes in Dominion lines. Elias commanded from the Resolute, voice calm amid the storm. Target their transports. Free the prisoners. Show the galaxy we do not leave our own. Admiral Imani snapped orders, her voice ringing across the comms. Squadrons dove, shields flaring, ripping into Dominion ships. One by one, transports erupted, spilling survivors into escape pods. Human corvettes raced to scoop them from the void. The cost was heavy. 3 cruisers lost, dozens of fighters annihilated. But when the battle ended, Eridan's orbit belonged not to the Dominion, but to humanity. Thousands of prisoners were freed. In the aftermath, Elias stood among the rescued on the Resolute's hangar deck. Children clung to their parents, tears streaking soot-stained faces. Soldiers saluted through exhaustion. For once, Elias allowed himself a flicker of something close to pride. Admiral Imani approached quietly. We've made them bleed again, but the Dominion will not stop. Next time, they'll come for us directly. Elias looked past her, through the hangar's viewport, at the battered ships drifting against the stars. Good, he said. Then the galaxy will see whether tyrants are immortal, or whether humanity can turn the tide. Every channel, every network, every fleet communication was filled with a single truth. The Dominion was moving, not border raids, not punitive strikes. A full armada, vast enough to smother entire sectors, drove toward Earth. In the war room of the Resolute, the atmosphere was suffocating. Hollow maps projected crimson arcs converging on Sol, the Dominion's intent undeniable. Silence clung to the officers like a shroud, until Admiral Imani broke it. "They want a symbol," she said grimly. "If Earth falls, the rest of us collapse with it." Elias Cade stood at the head of the table, gaze fixed on the burning icons. He had known this moment would come. The Dominion could not tolerate the illusion of human victory. To them, only annihilation restored order. "They want Earth to burn," Elias said. "Then we turn Earth into the pyre that consumes them." His words drew sharp looks, but no one challenged him. Too many had seen him make impossible gambles succeed. The council fractured in panic when the news arrived. Some delegates fled their chambers, seeking safety in distant systems. Others demanded immediate surrender, desperate to appease the Dominion before humanity's defiance doomed them all. But voices of resistance rose louder than ever. Images of freed prisoners from Eridan spread across the networks. Survivors spoke of human ships diving into fire to save them. Citizens demanded their leaders act. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's fear bent toward fury. Delegations began pledging ships, resources, intelligence. Hesitant at first, then in torrents. A coalition was born not from treaties, but from desperation and rage. And at its center, Elias Cade. The fleet mass above Earth was unlike anything seen in generations. Human vessels, newly built and old, held formation alongside alien warships of every shape and hue. Some were fragile, some half-crippled, but they came. Thousands of hulls filled orbit, their combined presence a defiance written in steel and plasma. Elias stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the flotilla assemble. For all its scale, it still seemed small compared to the tide about to crash upon them. Yet the sight stirred something rare even in him. Belief. Admiral Imani approached, her eyes shadowed by exhaustion. "You've done it. They're actually here." "They're not here for me," Elias replied. "They're here because the Dominion finally overreached. We're just a spark." Her voice softened. "And sparks burn out." He didn't answer. The Dominion arrived with thunder. Wormhole gates tore open across Sol's edge, vomiting forth warships the size of cities. Black-armored leviathans, bristling with weapons, formed an advancing wall. Their numbers dwarfed the coalition. The battle began instantly. Space erupted in fire. Railguns hurled slugs across light minutes. Missiles tracked through chaos, ripping holes in enemy lines. Fighters danced between titanic beams, their trails glowing against the void. The Resolute shook under impacts, shields flaring. Alarms screamed across the bridge. "Enemy pressure on the flank," a lieutenant shouted. "Hold formation," Elias ordered. His voice cut through the din like steel. "Push them into choke points. Force them to bleed for every kilometer." Across the system, the coalition fought with reckless desperation. Fragile frigates flung themselves into Dominion dreadnoughts, buying seconds for cruisers to strike. Alien warships unleashed technologies humanity had never seen, gravity lances, solar flares harnessed into weapons. The sky itself seemed to shatter under the scale of destruction. Still, the Dominion pressed forward, relentless, overwhelming. On the third day of battle, Earth's orbit lay in ruins. Entire fleets reduced to debris. Coalition numbers dwindled with every hour. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Imani's face was grim. "We can't hold another day. The reserves are endless." Elias studied the tactical map. Amid the swarm of Dominion icons, one burned brighter. The flagship of High Warlord Zirak. A towering fortress ship, its hull plated in living metal, pulsing with energy. The command nexus of the entire armada. Elias's decision was instant. Prepare a boarding strike. Imani's eyes widened. That ship is suicide. "So is waiting," Elias said. His tone brooked no argument. "Cut off the head. The body falters. We end this now." The strike force was small, a cluster of shuttles shielded by a suicide run of corvettes. They darted through fire, weaving between explosions. The Dominion flagship loomed before them, a mountain of steel blotting out the stars. The Resolute's shuttle bay roared open. Elias strode aboard the lead craft, armored and armed, his expression carved from stone. Admiral Imani stopped him at the ramp. "If you don't come back," she began. "Then make sure it matters," he cut her off. Their eyes met for a final, silent beat. Then the shuttle launched. The boarding action was chaos incarnate. Marines poured through ruptured hull breaches, exchanging fire with Dominion shock troops. The corridors of the fortress ship were labyrinthine, alive with hostile energy. Elias led from the front, rifle blazing, movement precise, unyielding. His squad cut a bloody path through resistance, driving ever deeper toward the command chamber. Finally, they burst into a cavernous hall. At its center stood High Warlord Zirak. The alien towered over them, armored like a god of war, molten eyes burning. His voice shook the chamber. "Human, the spark who thought himself a flame. You will kneel." Elias lowered his weapon, stepping forward alone. "I don't kneel. Not to tyrants." With a roar, Zirak charged. The duel was brutal. Zirak's strength was monstrous, each blow shaking the floor. Elias dodged, countered, his strikes precise, using speed and will against sheer might. Steel clashed with alien alloy, sparks raining like meteors. Zirak slammed Elias against a pillar, armor cracking. Pain lanced through him. But Elias forced his body forward, driving a blade into the warlord's side. Zirak howled, backhanded him across the chamber. Blood filled Elias's mouth. His vision blurred. Still he rose. The warlord advanced, furious and wounded. "You are nothing." Elias spat crimson and raised his blade again. "I am human." With a final surge, he drove the weapon through Zirak's throat. The alien staggered, molten eyes dimming, before collapsing with a crash that shook the hall. Silence followed. Then the fortress ship trembled. Deprived of command, Dominion coordination shattered. Across the system, their fleets faltered. The coalition struck back with ferocity, driving the enemy into retreat. The unthinkable had happened. The Dominion bled, and then it broke. Days later, Elias stood on Earth's surface for the first time since the war began. The sky was scarred, but it was theirs. Around him, survivors and soldiers alike raised voices in defiant triumph. Admiral Imani approached, her uniform scorched but her eyes alive. "You killed their king," she said softly. Elias looked out at the horizon. "No, humanity did. I just gave the galaxy proof." Above them, wreckage still burned in orbit, silent testament to the cost of defiance. But for the first time in centuries, the galaxy trembled not at the Dominion's wrath, but at humanity's rise.